woman quietly pumping gas becomes the center of a deadly miscalculation. But there's something about her that not even her enemies could have predicted. What will unfold when their worst assumptions meet her buried truth? Let us know in the comments section below. Penelope Kutcher didn't look like she could knock a man unconscious with one hand. That was the point. She kept her braided hair tucked under a dusty old baseball cap. Her coveralls were oil-stained and loose, her boots scuffed, her body language quiet and measured, like a woman who had learned to disappear inside ordinary moments. She lived her life in fragments, a socket wrench in her hand, country radio in the background, and always, her back to the wall. The gas station was just a routine stop, a 2-minute break from the auto shop, a cold bottle of water, maybe a protein bar. That night, her hands smelled like transmission fluid and burnt rubber. That's what she remembered most. How normal it all was. Until the second, it wasn't. Back in town, no one asked questions. People knew her as Nell, the soft-spoken mechanic with the scar that ran beneath her left eye and disappeared into her collarbone. Nobody knew how she got it, and nobody was dumb enough to ask. They liked her. She fixed their engines, minded her business, and didn't bother with gossip. But across town, Rhett Mason was asking questions. He stood in a dim warehouse, shirtless under a leather vest bearing the Iron Fangs logo, a coiled snake with human teeth. He tapped ash from a cigarette into a coffee can full of bullet casings. "Seen alone?" he asked without turning around. Said the younger man beside him, his voice taut. "Just her. Doesn't look like nothing." Rhett laughed, shaking his head slowly. "That's the kind that'll get you killed, the ones who don't look like nothing." The Iron Fangs weren't a street gang. They were organized, military-trained, ex-cops, ex-contractors, dropouts of 100 failed causes. What tied them together wasn't brotherhood, it was hate, shaped into something disciplined. And lately, they'd been testing the edges of Southridge. Quiet places, unguarded corners, weak links. Rhett crushed the cigarette under his boot. "She black?" he asked casually. The younger man hesitated. "Yeah." Rhett nodded like he already knew. "Then she's the message." Back at the gas station, Penelope stood with one hand on the pump, her other arm hanging lazily at her side. It was 10:17 p.m. The lot was quiet. A broken overhead light flickered above Pump 5, and she could feel the eyes before she saw them. 3 men, 1 truck. The truck didn't park at a pump. It eased up behind her like a shadow. Penelope didn't flinch. She just watched the fuel numbers roll on the screen in front of her, pretending not to see them in the side mirror. "Yo," one of them called. "This your car?" Penelope turned slowly, eyes neutral. "It's a truck." The one who'd spoken, blond with a thin scar across his nose, smirked. "Truck, car, whatever. You the one driving it?" Penelope didn't answer. Her heart rate didn't rise. She just tilted her head slightly, the same way she used to do in the octagon, calculating angles, spacing, momentum. Scarno stepped closer. "You know you parked in our spot, right?" The gas station didn't have assigned spots, but this wasn't about parking. Penelope's voice was soft. "You own the gas station?" He chuckled and glanced at the others. "Nah, but we're regulars." Behind him, one of the men started pacing in a half circle, flanking her. Penelope uncapped her water and took a sip. "Then you know I'm not the one you want to play with." Scarpa's smile cracked. It didn't vanish, but it shifted, revealing something meaner underneath. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Penelope finished the sip, capped the bottle, and set it calmly on her hood. "Why don't you step back and think that question through?" That's when the 4th man stepped out from the back of the truck. Rhett Mason. He didn't say anything at first. He just walked up behind his crew and took one long look at her. Penelope didn't blink, but her body changed. just slightly. Her left foot shifted half an inch. Her hands dropped to her sides. Her breathing slowed. It was Rhett who finally broke the silence. "You're not scared. Why?" Penelope stared straight at him. "You ever watched a wolf ignore a pack of dogs?" He grinned. It was the first time Penelope Kutcher had seen his face, but she knew the type. The way he held his chin like he'd been hit before and didn't mind it. The twitch in his fingers. The half-healed split across his knuckles. He was the kind of man who hurt people slowly. The kind who believed he was owed something. "I like you," Rhett said. "You've got teeth." He stepped closer. Penelope didn't move, but her voice dropped into something flat and sharp. "Make the first move." The three men looked at each other, hesitating. She saw it in their eyes, the doubt, the first flickers of it. Penelope knew this moment well. It always came right before someone made a mistake they couldn't walk away from. Rhett smirked and nodded at Skarnos. That was the mistake. Skarnos lunged, fast and wide like a street brawler, but Penelope was already moving. Her left elbow snapped into his temple, her right foot slid back to anchor her weight, and with one brutal motion she yanked his head forward into her rising knee. He dropped without a sound. The other two moved, but not together, sloppy, uncoordinated, panicked. Penelope flowed between them like water. One ducked punch, one heel to the ribs, a palm strike to the chin that lifted the man off his feet and sent him sprawling across the concrete. Rhett hadn't moved. He watched with something that almost looked like excitement. Penelope stood over them, breathing slow, jaw clenched. Her coveralls clung to her now, soaked in sweat and engine grease and rage. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Rhett stepped forward, clapping once. "Well, damn," he said. "You're not just teeth. You're the whole damn bear." Penelope narrowed her eyes. "Next time, bring a muzzle." Then she got in her truck, drove off. Didn't look back. But Rhett watched her taillights disappear into the dark, eyes gleaming. He had a new target now. And this time, it wasn't just about intimidation. It was about domination. And he just realized she might be the one opponent he couldn't predict. 2 hours later, Penelope was back under the hood of a busted '99 Chevy Tahoe, the rhythmic hiss of the radiator masking the storm in her chest. She'd scrubbed her knuckles raw in the shop sink, but the stain of what had happened at the gas station clung to her like a second skin. Sweat had dried into the fabric of her t-shirt, and grease layered her forearms like armor. Samara Ellis, her friend and co-worker, leaned against the tool chest with a socket wrench in one hand and a knowing look in her eye. "You're too calm," Samara said, tossing a glance at Penelope's bruised wrist. "Either you meditated in your truck for an hour or somebody tried you again." Penelope didn't answer. She kept her eyes on the engine like it held all the secrets of the universe. Samara clicked her tongue. "You fought somebody. You always get real quiet when you fight, like it resets you." Penelope finally met her gaze. "It's handled." "That's not an answer. It's all you're getting tonight." Samara sighed and walked over, wiping her hands on a rag. She lowered her voice. "I saw Rhett's truck roll past here an hour ago." It pulled Penelope's eyes back to hers. "It didn't stop, just crawled by real slow, like a lion looking through glass." Penelope felt the memory crawl up her spine. The way he smiled while his crew lay unconscious at her feet. The way he didn't flinch. "Who is he, Nell?" Samara's voice was soft now, cautious. "I've seen him before. He ain't new." Penelope closed the hood with a sharp clang and leaned on it, arms folded, eyes dark. She didn't want to go back, not yet. Not to the war inside her. "He's ex-purple military," she said finally. "Was deployed once or twice while I was still active. Dishonorably discharged, too aggressive, even for contractors. Samara raised an eyebrow. How do you know that? Because I trained with him, Penelope said, years ago. We were in the same hand-to-hand rotation. He was already off, wanted to hurt people, enjoyed it. Samara whistled low. So he knows what you can do. Penelope shook her head slowly. No. Back then, I played the role. Quiet, obedient. I only started winning after they stopped watching. Samara leaned against the truck beside her, letting the silence stretch. You think he recognized you? Penelope exhaled through her nose. I think he knows he made a mistake tonight, but I don't think it scared him. Samara chewed her lip. You gonna call somebody? Maybe warn Officer Waller? Penelope's voice hardened. Jude's a good man, but he's still a badge. This ain't a police kind of problem. This is the kind of problem that waits in the dark, watching who you talk to, who you protect. Samara didn't argue. She just reached out and squeezed Penelope's shoulder. Then, I'm not leaving you alone. We ride this out together. Penelope managed a small nod of gratitude before turning back to the truck. But something still stirred in her chest. Something she hadn't felt in years. The itch. The sense that everything quiet was temporary. That the peace she'd built was a hollow shell. That something violent was inching closer. Across town, Rhett sat in the back room of a strip mall bar, the TV flickering above the empty pool table. His crew was banged up, bruised, and silent. No one wanted to speak first. She embarrassed you, Rhett finally said, low and flat. 3 of you, and she folded you like laundry. Scarnose, whose real name was Dylan, rubbed his swollen jaw. She ain't normal, Rhett. She moved like she knew what we were doing before we did it. That's 'cause she did, Rhett muttered. She's trained, better than any of us. The room stiffened. You saying she's, what, ex-cop? No, Rhett said. Cops move slow. She's something else. He took a long drag off his cigarette and leaned forward, elbows on knees. Find out everything you can. Name, job, address. I want to know what kind of life she's pretending to live. One of the others, Cruz, looked unsure. Boss, maybe we just let this one go. I mean, she didn't press charges. Hell, she didn't even call anyone. Rhett's voice sharpened. She made us look weak. That doesn't go away on its own. Dylan spoke up again. What if we flip it? Use her. Use her how? Make an example of her. Film it, spread it, show people what happens when you step out of line. Rhett stared at him for a long time, then nodded slowly. But he wasn't thinking about cameras. He was thinking about something else entirely. The way she stood, the way she struck. She hadn't just learned violence. She'd lived in it, thrived in it. That kind of power didn't go away. It just got quiet. And Rhett hated quiet. He lit another cigarette. Go back to that gas station, he said. Talk to the clerk. Pay him if you have to. I want her name by morning. Meanwhile, Penelope stood on her porch, arms crossed, eyes locked on the street below. Her truck sat in the drive, lights off, doors locked. But it felt like a warning now, not a ride home. She glanced at the mailbox. The dent from last year's hailstorm still hadn't been fixed. Her neighbor's porch light flickered, and the breeze carried the smell of someone's late-night barbecue. It all looked so normal. But it wasn't. She could feel it, the way a fighter always knows when the arena is getting smaller. She turned and walked back inside, locking the door behind her. Upstairs, in the back of her closet, was a black duffel bag, unzipped for the first time in 3 years. Inside were her gloves, her wraps, her badge from a military base that didn't exist anymore, a folded photo of her old unit, dog tags she never wore, and at the very bottom, wrapped in cloth, was the championship belt she'd never displayed. She stared at it for a long time. Then she whispered to herself, "Right, it was a fight. and she pulled the bag out into the light. The morning sun did nothing to warm Penelope's bones. She sat cross-legged on the dusty floor of her garage, wrapping her hands in silence, slow and methodical. Each pull of the cloth was a prayer, a memory, a promise. Her phone buzzed on the workbench beside her. "Come and call her." She let it ring, then again, and again. She stood, grabbed a screwdriver, and jammed it into the metal case of a broken carburetor, just to hear something break. The call stopped. Samara came through the side door, holding 2 coffees and a paper bag. She froze when she saw Penelope's hands, half-wrapped, her posture tense, eyes dark. "You slept." Samara set the coffees down gently. "He's pushing. I can feel it." Penelope didn't answer. She reached for her gloves and slipped them on with a finality that made Samara shiver. "I told Jude," Samara added. "I had to. He's not turning a blind eye this time." Penelope finally looked at her. "He's going to get hurt." I told him that too. A long pause passed between them, filled only by the sound of a passing car on the street outside. Then Penelope walked over and opened a metal cabinet that hadn't been touched in years. Inside were training pads, an old jump rope, 2 pairs of broken headgear, and a laminated list taped to the back wall. It was labeled, "Sparing Priority, Level 3 Combatants Only." She ripped the list down, crumpled it in her hand, and tossed it in the trash. "This ain't about sparring," she said. "It's about ending something before it spreads." Samara frowned. "You sure you want to do this here?" Penelope nodded. "The garage is mine. The property is mine. I control everything in this space. They step in here, they step into my ring." Samara swallowed hard, then held up the paper bag. "Got your favorites, spinach and egg white, protein bar, apple." Penelope took it with a faint smirk. "You trying to keep me alive?" "I'm trying to make sure you don't kill anyone on an empty stomach." While Penelope ate in silence, Samara walked to the front of the garage and unlocked the gate, pushing it open with both hands until the sunlight poured in. The street looked normal. Joggers passed by. A kid on a skateboard zipped through the sidewalk, his music blaring. But they both knew it wouldn't stay quiet for long. Rhett was moving. 2 blocks away, a man named Gabe sat in a white van pretending to eat a breakfast sandwich while photographing the garage. His phone buzzed once every few minutes with updates. From inside, Rhett's voice crackled over the walkie. "She's not leaving town. She's prepping for something. I think she knows we're watching," Gabe replied, chewing slowly. "Doesn't matter. Let her know, send a message." Rhett ended the call. Back inside the bar, now cleared of customers, Rhett walked over to a map taped across a pool table. Pushpins marked intersections, businesses, and exits out of Southridge. Red pins circled 3 buildings: the gas station, the mechanic's shop, and Penelope's house. "She's got a pattern," Rhett muttered. "Loyalty spots. She protects people." Dylan rubbed his jaw, still sore. "So what's the move? We storm the shop?" Rhett shook his head. "Nah, she's too ready. She's setting bait." "Then what?" "We force her out." "How?" Rhett picked up a photograph from the table, a grainy shot of Samara locking up the shop 2 nights ago. "We take what matters to her." By the time Penelope stepped outside to stretch, she noticed the van. It had moved once, then again, but now it sat directly across the street, windows dark, engine cold. She tilted her head slightly, stretched her neck, and walked toward it. The van pulled away, tires screeching as it shot down the road. She didn't chase. She didn't need to. She turned and walked back into the shop. By nightfall, Officer Jude Waller stood in the corner of the garage, hands on his hips, eyes scanning the setup. Sandbags reinforced the lower panels of the shop doors. Every tool that could double as a weapon had been mounted or organized within arm's reach. "You booby-trapped the place," he muttered, I fortified it, Penelope corrected. He turned to her, tired and skeptical. You're a mechanic. I'm a survivor, she said, and I'm done pretending I'm not. Jude took a deep breath. You want me to post a car outside? Bring backup? No? No. You post a cop and they'll come in through the back. You post two and they'll burn the place down. You stand by and maybe they get scared. But maybe they don't. Either way, I'm not asking. Jude's jaw clenched. You're trying to draw them here. Penelope didn't deny it. They already followed Sam once, she said. They'll try again. Collins not just run. Because if I run, they follow. But if they come here, on my terms, I can end this, for good. Jude stared at her, like he was looking at someone he didn't know anymore. What the hell did you used to do now? She walked past him, grabbing her wraps again. Everything I wasn't supposed to. That night, Penelope waited in the garage with every light off, a single lamp flickering in the corner. Samara was gone, reluctantly driven to a safe house on the edge of town. Jude had promised to check in every hour, but she knew better than to count on anyone being close. Midnight passed, then 1:06 a.m. The first sound came from the alley gate, metal creaking under pressure, then a shadow, then two. She didn't move. Let them come. By 1:11, 3 of them were inside. She watched through the reflection in the glass, heart steady, muscles loose. Dylan moved first, stepping across the oil-stained floor with a bat in hand. Another man carried a crowbar. The third kept lookout near the door. Rhett didn't come. Howard. Penelope stepped into the light. Wrong place. Dylan turned, face shifting from surprise to smug satisfaction. Didn't think you'd wait up, he said. Penelope's response came in silence. She walked toward him, boots echoing off the floor. Where's your boss? She asked. He laughed. Somewhere better. She was 10 feet away. I'll make sure you join him. He swung. She ducked. And in a blink, Penelope Kutcher became what she always was. Danger made flesh. Her elbows snapped into his side, her fist drove into his collarbone, and the bat clattered across the floor. The other two moved too slow. One caught a knee to the chin, the other stumbled and hit the concrete with a grunt. 3 bodies, 3 groans, one woman standing over them like a shadow made real. Penelope leaned down, grabbed Dylan by the shirt, and whispered into his ear. Tell Rhett. He's next. Then she opened the shop door and let the night back in. Because the trap was set, and the real fight was coming, it started with silence. Penelope stood in the middle of the garage, the dawn light bleeding through the high windows like thin gold threads. The fight had ended hours ago, but her mind was still caged in the rhythm of combat. Breathe, move, strike, listen. Blood had dried in a trail across the floor. Her knuckles throbbed beneath layers of gauze. But she didn't feel pain. Not really. Not anymore. Jude was the first to arrive, his cruiser pulling up slow, cautious, headlights dimmed. He stepped out like a man unsure of the battlefield he was walking into. When he saw the 3 unconscious men stacked near the wall like broken furniture, he didn't say a word, just exhaled, long and heavy. Rhett, he asked. Penelope shook her head. Is still out there? Jude knelt beside the nearest man and checked for a pulse. You want me to call it in? He's not done yet, she said. This wasn't the hit. It was the test. Jude stood up slowly, looking her in the eye. You said you didn't want help. I don't. He crossed his arms. But I'll need someone to watch the front gate. He smiled, just a little. Yeah, I can do that. By 7 a.m., the town was waking up. Lawn sprinklers flicked on. Birds chirped without irony. The world moved forward, pretending it hadn't almost broken in the dark. Penelope cleaned up in silence. She scrubbed blood off the concrete with coarse soap in her bare hands. She re-racked the wrenches, rewound the extension cords, recentered the world around her. She knew what was coming. She could feel it. Rhett wouldn't hide, not after this. He would finish what he started, and he would come himself. She didn't know how he'd approach, but she knew when. He would come before the sun burned away the shadows. And he did. At 8:14 a.m., the roar of a motorcycle cut through the quiet like a serrated blade. The Iron Fangs didn't usually ride solo, but Rhett wasn't most men. Penelope stepped out from the garage, wiping her hands on a rag as the engine died. Rhett dismounted slow. His jacket was heavier than usual, zipped to the collar. No smile this time, just that same burning steadiness in his eyes, like violence had turned him holy. He looked around the street, taking in the stillness. "No cameras?" he asked. "No audience." "Pity." Penelope tossed the rag behind her. "You didn't come for attention." He walked forward until they stood 5 feet apart. Two figures cut from opposite cloth. "You made my crew look like amateurs," he said. "They were. You made me look weak. That you are." Red flexed his hands. "You ever think we could have been on the same side?" "I was on a side," she said. "The side that buried your kind in dust and silence." He smiled, but there was no joy in it. "You were always better than the rest of us," he said, "even back then. Thought you were smarter, cleaner, righteous. I just knew where the line was, and I was willing to cross it. You never saw the line to begin with." He nodded. "So this is it?" Penelope didn't flinch. "Yeah, this is it." Rhett moved first. He was fast, not just brute force, but calculated, tactical. His jab was precise, his footing stable, every motion trained. But Penelope had seen faster, fought smarter, endured longer. She absorbed his first hit to her shoulder, pivoted, and drove her heel into his ribs. He grunted, twisted, and caught her with an elbow to the side of the head. Stars burst in her vision, but she stayed upright, balanced. He backed off just a step, testing her. "Are you slowing down, champ?" She smiled through a thin streak of blood from her lip. "You should have brought backup." He lunged again, this time trying to tackle her low, but she sprawled and turned, letting his weight work against him. Her arm slipped under his neck, locking into a hold. "You ever tap out?" she asked, breath hot near his ear. "Never," he hissed. "Then sleep." And she squeezed. He thrashed, elbowed her side, tried to roll, but she didn't let go. Didn't even blink, until the moment his eyes fluttered, limbs slackened, and his body dropped like an anchor. She released him, stood over his unconscious form, chest rising and falling, slow. Behind her, Jude emerged from the garage doorway, weapon holstered. "You need a medic." Penelope shook her head. Billy said. "Just needs to wake up in a cage." Jude nodded. "I'll make the call." An hour later, Rhett was cuffed and loaded into a cruiser. He didn't speak, didn't resist, just stared at Penelope through the rear window as the car rolled away. The last time she saw his eyes, they looked empty. For the first time, he seemed to understand what defeat actually meant. By noon, word had spread. The gas station clerk, young, nervous, came by with free drinks and a stammered apology. A few neighbors dropped off casseroles, unsure what else to do. No one asked for details. They didn't need to. Penelope didn't crave recognition, but she noticed how people looked at her differently now. Not with fear, not even with awe, with respect. That night, she sat outside the shop with Samara and Jude, legs kicked up on a plastic crate, a cold drink in hand. "You ever gonna rest?" Samara asked. Penelope tilted her head toward the sky. It might. Not tonight, though? Not yet. Jude chuckled softly. You know, you could do something with all that training. Start a class, teach self-defense, be the legend of Southridge. Penelope smirked. I'm not a legend. Jude shrugged. Close enough. She didn't answer, just leaned back and let the stars settle above her. The town wasn't perfect. Racism hadn't vanished. Hate hadn't died. But the thing that hunted her was gone now. No more shadows trailing her home. No more whispers in alleys. No one left to chase. In the weeks that followed, the garage became something more. She cleared out the back room, installed mats, hung heavy bags from the rafters. Kids came first, then mothers, then a few older guys trying to remember how to stand tall again. She never posted ads. People just came. Word traveled. And when they asked what to call the place, she looked at the old plaque on the wall, the one she used to cover with an oil-stained towel. It read, Penelope Kutcher, National Champion 2012. She left it uncovered. I let them see it. And above the doorway, on a scrap of painted wood, Samara scrawled a name that made Penelope laugh for the first time in months. The Quiet Storm. Because now, she didn't need to hide it anymore. Not the belt. Not the scars. Not herself. And in a town that had once watched from behind fences and silence, now they stood beside her. Be stronger, taller, louder, because of her, because of what she did, because the storm didn't destroy them, it saved them. And this time it was never going back in the cage.